an opportunity for his team to help start up an office. And similar to Ches, I don't like to say no to opportunities. I didn't really know anything about Aplin, but I said yes, I'll jump ship and I'll come work in this brand new office with a man named Chesley from BC. And
There's this figure that's coming across country.
Yeah,
going to
I
help
had
us.
no idea. Is he big?
Yeah.
Is he small? No details, just his name. So yeah, found myself in the Toronto office on it's like September, I believe. It's pretty cold. And then he walked in wearing like a fall jacket and a scarf. And it was like definitely like winter jacket time. He wasn't aware of how cold it gets here, but that was day one.
Hello and welcome back to the workshop presented by Aplin Martin. On today's episode, I'm joined by Chesley Blahut, the engineering lead of the GTA, and Andrew Farina, project manager. Chesley and Andrew were part of the original group that were tasked with opening the office back in 2017. From administrative pains to growing a new client base, all while developing a new team, Chesley and Andrew reflect back on their time when the office first began. They reflect on the early years of Aplin in Ontario and the evolution of their own personal and professional careers in civil engineering. It was great to see these two gentlemen behind the scenes, and I hope you all enjoy. So now, as we're here, we're in our new office. We just moved from the Toronto location to now our new Oakville location that's combined with the architecture group. So it's kind of a new step and a new phase, I guess, for Aplin. So today we're going to be focusing kind of the trip from the Toronto office, which was basically 3 or 4 of us at the start, to now where we are today. So I want to touch a little bit about the background of both of you guys. How long you've been in the industry, where you guys grew up, schooling, universities, and all of that fun stuff. So whoever wants to start, go for it.
So I grew up, I'm from out west. I grew up in Abbotsford, BC, which is a little bit outside of Vancouver. And I went to school out in Burnaby at BCIT, did my full 4 years there, and started work at Aplin in 2010.
Andrew?
I grew up in the city of Vaughan, a small township of Maple. It's a little bit bigger now these days, but that's where my roots are from. I originally didn't attend or plan to attend any university or college. I wasn't the best in high school, but somehow I found myself at Humber College and stayed there, got through the 3 years and tested myself and went to Lakehead University in Thunder Bay, and then did a 2.5-year program, got my bachelor's, and I've been working ever since.
And not too far from where I grew up as well, so we had a lot of overlapping restaurants we went to, schools that we knew, just a lot of places in common. So how did you guys both get involved with engineering?
My dad, he went to Humber back in the day, I think like the 70s and 80s. He did engineering and architecture, and when I was finishing high school, I had no idea what to do. And he suggested to try this program and see if you like math, and I learned to like math eventually.
I was gonna say, I feel like no one ever grows up liking math.
Did not like it. It was hard. College was hard at the beginning.
Like, where's the calculator? I need something to.
But yeah, I just kept at it, and I really enjoyed my first little bit of working in the GTA, and just haven't left yet. So
awesome.
For me, I was kind of always in and around construction most of my life, and so I kind of figured I would go to school and be a construction manager, actually, and I figure engineering was a good path for that.
Yeah. It's a good place to start, and then
But then I didn't know actually anything about the engineering field, and after I graduated, started working, and I excelled pretty quickly.
So it almost kind of grew into the role and grew into the field, you could say.
Exactly, yeah.
Awesome. So I guess we'll get right into it and why we are in this brand new, beautiful office we are today. So how did you each get involved with Aplin to start? I guess, Chesley, I'd like to hear you on this one first, as you were the first Toronto team member of the engineering division.
Well, when I first started in Aplin was after graduated my second year of school, and didn't really know where to work at the time. I think I had a few classmates that were already working at Aplin, and they said, "Hey, just come here," and I applied and got the job. And then I guess, how I became involved in Toronto was,
I guess for the listeners that don't know, obviously Chelsey mentioned he was from out west, but then basically picked up everything and drove across the country to where we are now. So
I even think you sold your speed bike.
yeah.
You'll buy it back one day.
So you can continue.
No, I mean, that was probably not as organic as when I started at Aplin, but I think obviously the company had its eyes out on the East Coast for a long time, and but I think I randomly got asked if I wanted to come out.
Picked out of the lottery, so to
Nice.
speak. Lottery,
Yeah.
we'll say.
And I honestly had no plans, never thought about coming to the East Coast at all before I got asked. And for some reason,
It's like it's the black hole over there. Maybe to visit eventually.
It's
But.
just a little colder and we get snow.
for some reason, I've always said yes to most opportunities, and I said yes. I remember being to Toronto, I packed up and arrived my first day, or the day before I'm starting work. That was my first day in Toronto ever.
Talk about a transition then.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So now I'd like to get a little bit more into the relationship. Obviously, you guys have a very close working relationship, not just us three, but you two specifically. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your relationship, how you guys have met, and how that's evolved over the years. So let's start with, I guess, how you guys have met and your working relationship.
Sure. I was lucky to meet this guy beside me, Chesley. I was working at Coal Engineering out of Lakehead, and I was working for a very unique project manager, and he offered up an opportunity for his team to help start up an office. And similar to Ches, I don't like to say no to opportunities. I didn't really know anything about Aplin, but I said yes, I'll jump ship and I'll come work in this brand new office with a man named Chesley from BC. And yeah,
There's this figure that's coming across country. that's going to
I
help
had
us.
no idea. Is he big?
Yeah.
Is he small?
What's he gonna-
No details, just
Yeah.
his name. So yeah, found myself in the Toronto office on it's like September, I believe. It's
Yeah.
pretty cold. And then he walked in wearing like a fall jacket and a scarf.
Mm.
And it was like definitely like winter jacket time. He wasn't aware of how cold it gets here, but
Yeah.
that was day one. And
First impression.
yeah,
That was good.
and I felt welcome, which was interesting. Engineers are sometimes closed off, but
Mhm.
Ches was very welcoming that day, and yeah.
Can you talk about your initial impressions then, Chesley, as well? That was kind of Andrew's first initial impression, I guess, of starting over somewhere else. But I guess starting a new office, how was that like?
It was a little bizarre, right? You walk into the space, which I've never been to. Actually, I think I was carrying Andrew's laptop or desktop at the time with
Yeah.
me.
The tower, old school.
And
That's crazy.
we started out, three of us in an office that was the size for at least over 20, right? So so
Quiet.
Yeah.
big quiet space.
I was gonna say I can almost speak to that too, because that's obviously where I did my interview when I started with with Aplin as well, and I knew of the building because I did work for another firm that was in there as well, so I knew it existed. But on the time at the website when I did the research, I was like, there is no Toronto listed here, so who are they basically? And then I remember when I walked in, I was like, there's no people. I was like, there's nobody at the front. There's nobody in the desks. It was really quiet. So I remember that was like my first initial impression. But you can see to where we are today, right? So
Hey, times haven't changed that much. Like if you had an interview on a Friday just a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and there was still nobody in the office.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different since COVID.
yeah. So Andrew, I guess since you moved over, you mentioned you moved over firms when you first were in EIT. How was that like for you, changing from, say, a more established firm to now being able to grow something smaller with a smaller group of individuals? Was it scary for you? Were you intimidated? Was it something you were looking forward to the challenge? Were you a little bit nervous because, hey, am I ready to actually take on this kind of role and responsibility that I might be doing a little bit more than what I was doing at my previous my previous firm?
And basically yes to all your answers: nervous, scared, unsure. It was just a time of life where I wasn't really sure on where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. I only learned, it was like small site plans and stuff I was working on. I was in the ICI team. So Aplin Martin, they do roads, they do big sites, master plans, and I found maybe that could be my passions, my vision. So that was a really interesting journey.
And then at the time as well, because I know obviously when we first started, we transitioned to obviously starting with some BC work. Was that something you were familiar with, or you came to learn when you were with us at the start, right?
Yeah, all through him. The BC process, that's a little bit different than Ontario. But I had never any experience, just with Aplin.
And Chesley, for you then, touching on some of the project experience at the start, how was it like transitioning then, more so from from a mental and mental mindset sort of way, where you're working from these bigger BC projects, and then you're almost coming to Toronto with not quote unquote zero work, but you're having to go out, get the work starting from smaller. How was that for you?
Well, weird. I don't think I ever did a single family lot before in my career.
And now you have double digits at least in Richmond Hill, so.
So, but it was a starting point. It's a good way to get kind of introduced into the local standards and stuff too, which are different than BC. Like, there are differences that I didn't really see, I guess, when I first moved here. The engineering is still the engineering, but I mean, there are distinct differences.
Yeah. People don't like change, right? So it's like adjusting to things that you're not used to, sort of thing.
Good thing gravity's the same here as BC, so
yeah, just a little bit lower on that side.
Water's going one way usually, so.
So now that we talked about the projects, I would like to touch a little bit more about the actual office, and then life within the office, and then life within yourselves, I guess, starting basically from scratch, right? Were there any specific tasks or things that you found yourself doing kind of at the start that you may have not been accustomed to, I guess, at a more established position? What kind of almost, well, not that we were starting basically from scratch, because we obviously had the support from the bigger Aplin team, but obviously you were not starting from ground zero, so to speak, but that's what it almost felt like. So were there things that you were doing or tasks that you were doing that you didn't expect to be doing that aren't part of your regular job description?
I got a good one. I remember this so clearly, but it was like task number 3 was developing the template for the FSR swim report. Because we had BC examples of reporting. We also had Ontario standards on how to do it. So us 3 just worked together and developed our template. And today it's still pretty close. It's a lot better. But that task was cool because where it came from, you wouldn't be ever asked to work on templates. That's a different department. So that was a task that I took on, and I really enjoyed it.
Getting to add in your own input, creativity, and your own sort of like flair on it.
Exactly, yeah, it was great.
Chesley, is there something that you were doing? I know you obviously wear a lot of hats in the office now, but at the time you're like, what am I doing with this right now, sort of thing?
Well, the thing that comes to mind is administrative tasks.
Because you didn't have anybody then,
I forget how long after we got an actual AA in our office. Must have been at least 6 months.
Probably. No, lots of formatting.
So, it was just a little weird doing some of those AA tasks. People normally do this.
I usually don't have to have the eyes for that, but interesting. Yeah, I remember specifically too, just like getting some of the office stuff set up, like how we wanted to do like the dividers, and if you wanted to change things, it was like small nuances like that. Just little things like that you didn't think you would have to think about, because most of the time when you're going somewhere, it's already basically in place. But when nothing's ever set in stone, so to speak, or it's all prepared 100%, there's that sort of part to it as well. Now, with doing all of those changes or starting from scratch, there are obviously a lot of challenges, mental, physical, like that you could think of when you're starting from ground zero from an office perspective. Are there any challenges that you guys can remember vividly or that you learned from today that have made you kind of the managers you are and the people that you are when you're working on projects with people?
There's a few days that are challenging. I think just learning how to slowly work through stuff together, working as a team, because I was a junior, it was EIT then, it was new to Ches, so just working super closely with each other and making sure that we're all on the same page with what we're about to assume or propose on our designs. I learned that was crucial to successful projects, timelines, budgets. So something learned on the beginning.
Me, I would say staffing was probably the biggest challenge. You know, obviously all three of us here are still here.
Present, yes.
But that's about it. There's a lot of, I think, challenges finding the right people, finding who we actually need. 'Cause I was working with obviously different people out here than I would normally be working with out west.
Yeah.
So finding out how everybody operates and learning how to actually properly interview people too.
Because there's certain qualities that it's important, right? Because there are certain, as you've also brought Andrew and I into the interview process, right? There are certain qualities you can see from a person when you're speaking with them. There are certain, I guess I like, especially when I do it, there's certain like nuances that I'm like, oh, I really like that vibe, so to speak, that person's giving off. Because I believe you can teach people a lot of things, but it's the way back and the willingness that you're looking for and that sort of drive, right? That isn't picked up in, like, not a resume, but also in their grades or something, sort of speak, and in their written resume, right? You actually have to get to them face to face, hear them speak, right?
Yeah, it was difficult for sure.
I was glad to be a junior then. I wasn't a part of those difficult times. For the managers to
let
sort
those
of,
for the higher ups to
I
deal
just
with.
had to do the math with the other people.
Yeah.
Well, you saw what we're going through though.
Yeah, I saw the challenges. Didn't feel it. But it's an exciting time.
So, how have you seen then now from back in 7 years ago? We were talking about just before this, right? 7 years ago. So how have you seen then the office, the people, how have you personally grown and developed from that first day when you opened the doors and you saw the walls and the sign on the door, to kind of now where we have not only just our civil team that's bigger, but we also have a whole other division that's with us here as well, right? So just to see literally the physical growth along with your personal growth.
I just feel like a lot of pride in seeing the growth. A lot of the stuff we did in the early years is still how we get stuff done today. And it just makes me really proud to see the growth continue and people enjoying their days here. I've seen a lot of stressful days at work at various companies.
You're not the only one, don't worry.
You know what I mean? So I love to see people smiling and enjoying the process.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I get definitely a lot of pride seeing the growth here as well.
Yeah.
What else can I add?
No, I'd just like to touch on that too, Andrew, for sure, is not only being able to see kind of the growth in yourself as well as you take on more tasks, right? But then you see the output of that, and then the respect you get from not only people from the outside when they're valuing your opinion, but then from the inside when they're taking what you're saying. Like you and I work together when we work with juniors or when we work with Chesley, right? Just being able to see kind of the growth personally, that you're able to have more knowledge and take on more tasks and then lead people to and bring them along for the journey, right?
Yeah,
I think
sure.
that's the biggest thing that I've seen probably from day one when I walked in and didn't really know anything about work. I just wore a dress shirt and dress pants, and that was kind of, I was like, well, I'm here, let's show off, and I'll bring a pencil and I'll do stuff, I guess. To taking on more responsibility and, like you said, having that sense of pride, not only just for yourself, but for everybody else here and now, right? You don't just want the firm to succeed, right? You want your brand, yourself to succeed, and if you can bring other people who are important with you in your lives along for that, right?
Yeah. I'm lucky to meet my current girlfriend because of Aplin Martin. Well, I met her at my first workspace, but we had to hire really quickly. We had a water resources position open, and she accepted. And I think it was like a month later, the company helped me find my current girlfriend, hopefully soon to be wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
and she's given me a lot of learning lessons as well.
She's pretty tough.
Yeah, I remember getting her red lines and a lot of important lessons I still have from her today. So, I want to touch a little bit about, now that we've talked about the growth, how we've all kind of grown personally, grown career-wise, and how the office has grown. Andrew, you obviously took a few years away from this office and then came back most recently in January of this year.
Yep. Yeah.
So I just want to touch a little bit about that as to why did you come back and how did he persuade you?
Okay. I wouldn't put it all on him. He's just been like a really good friend to me ever since I met him. We've always just had that relationship even when I wasn't here. The persuasion and the convincing, I have to give it to Edward Fuji. He's always maintained a relationship with me. We would have a cold beer every 3 to 4 months. And his insight, his wisdom, what he's explained to me on how this operation works. Yeah. Knowing Ches is here, with him here and Fuji's, legacy and vision, it's like a no-brainer to me to be here today and continue what Aplin Martin started over 55 years ago.
So now what did you tell him?
I mean, I did my best too to provide some.
You're telling him Chesley never took you off for one
No.
cold, or he took you off for multiple
But
cold
he didn't have to
beers.
do anything.
Yeah.
I always want to work for Ches.
That's funny. So now, where do you see the Toronto office and the future of Toronto engineering? Not only for Aplin specifically, but for the industry as well.
Well, we've come a long way just in terms of the type of projects we do, right? So I think our level of service that we offer and what we can do as from an engineering standpoint is growing a lot, and I think there's a lot more growth to do. I think eventually we can kind of touch on almost every aspect of at least civil engineering from this office.
Yeah, I think like something in the future when people talk about or think about Aplin Martin, I'll relate it to like the tech industry.
Yeah.
I'm not a techie person, but we all know the Apples, the Microsofts, the leaders of innovation and why we build sustainable communities. I'm hoping soon enough when we think of the Ontario, well, I guess across Canada, but I'm here, so when we think of Ontario, excellent firms on quality of service and on time, on budget mentality. I'm hoping Aplin Martin is just under the list of all the key consultants that help to design and build most of the GTA.
Yeah, it's a great goal to strive for, to be with those names kind of at the top of the industry, right? Because then it's not only that you are with them, but you're able to, like you said, you're providing equality, and it's something to that you're putting out there that you're prideful for.
Yeah.
So along those lines, talking about pride and work that you're very proud of, what are some of your, or each, I'll just go for one of each of you guys, favorite Toronto projects and why? Could be separate, could be ones that both of you have touched together, could be your first one, could be your last one, could be somewhere in the middle.
I guess my favorite project comes from when I was engineering designer for the firm. Correct me if I got or it's in Wasaga Beach, I don't need to say the address. But it was I think like a 12 lot single family project, and I was lucky to design it with Chesley, and I think it was just us two. I could be wrong, but so pretty sure it's just us two. And we all know how Ontario applications go. You always assume 2 or 3 submissions for zoning, and it's just the way we have to get approvals here for our clients.
Yeah.
But that project, Chesley got first submission approval on the zoning aspects. And that project just reminded me like how critical it is to like take your time, do it properly.
Yeah.
Talk to the township before you submit, and if the client needs to wait an extra week on the application, then that's what you want to do in development. You don't want to just get it in the door.
Yeah.
And that project is just very, it means a lot to me, that project. He let me stick handle it.
There's value in communication and making sure that things are done the right way and not just for the sake of doing them.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a big fancy project at all. It's good size, but
those are almost the most sentimental ones, right?
Yeah.
The ones where you learn, you could say, like a valuable lesson where you can look back and be like, okay, like that's still something that I learned from there that I'll use on a 100-lot subdivision or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
And it was all sand too, so we could actually do LIDs.
oh, very cool.
So it was a cool design project too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I do like kind of the subdivisions or larger scale projects. So we started on a 200-lot subdivision in Richmond Hill, and that's probably one that, I mean, we're still in finishing construction now, but that's one that I really enjoyed. I like the planning aspect of it, you know, trying to set your road profiles, you know, for something so large, determine how big your sewers are coming in, leaving. So yeah, I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. And I think for that one, I think almost everybody's at least been out to see it and or inspect it. So that may be one of the only ones where everybody's timesheet has at least 1 or 2 hours on that project in the office. So, which is a good one, just for an example to show how, even for the size of the Toronto office at the time, that because everybody has to work in a team and the importance of teamwork and responsibility, that you may have to put on different hats and you may have to work for different projects that you might not have even had on your radar ever.
Yeah. I feel like we still operate a little bit that way too. I mean, everybody's is pretty dynamic. And
Good word, Derek will be happy.
And I think everybody's willing to put in the work and, you know, try different things.
For sure. Now we'll step outside of Toronto for a second and Ontario. Where is there a location in the world that you would want to design a project if you could?
Yeah, like my focus for the last little bit of my career has been Peel region. So anything north or south of Highway 413, I would love to help landowners get their sites to construction. It's going to be a long process because the highway's ongoing, but yeah, Caledon or Brampton within Peel region is like my focus right now.
Yeah, and especially in the times now in Ontario where everybody's speaking about housing and how hot of a topic is, it's super important that we're able to do not only the work and get it submitted, but good work that is able to get approved faster for everybody.
Yeah.
I've always had some interest in maybe doing some type of international project at some point during my career. I think would be kind of fun, interesting to do something unique that's outside of Canada.
Just to see also like different standards and stuff. And it's not that it's nerdy or it's because I know people don't like the saying don't take work home with you, but I find the most synergy or synonymous if you are with your work is that you actually you enjoy it, right? You enjoy being able to go to different places and you're like, wow, like oh, so that's how why does that sewer look like that there?
Yeah.
Or when you're, for example, when it was in Florida this past couple of months, you're like, oh, so that's how the drainage works there, or certain things like that, right, that you don't typically see over here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So being able to pick up on those, and I'm not sure, Andrew, I know you just went to, you just had a Europe trip this past couple of weeks ago.
Portugal. Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's anything unique you saw there in terms of engineering. Or if there
So
was
unique.
Yeah.
Like wherever they have the
things you picked up
drains,
on.
like walkways, right? Like you have your drain. Like back in the day, the contractors rotated the tile so the water would flow better. And they actually changed the color of the tile too. So usually it'd be a black tile on the way in, and everything else was like the grays. And I just find that so fascinating because I don't think they did any calculations, but they just knew to make this area
Yeah.
a different surface treatment. And yeah, found that very, very interesting all over the place.
Yeah. Not everything else always has to be up to code as long as
Yeah.
it gets to where it has to be,
Exactly.
and public safety is
Yeah.
is promoted. So
I'm always looking down at the street wherever I go on vacation too, and my wife asked me the other day when I was in Chicago, was like, "Why do you keep looking at the curbs?"
why are you touching them? It's not a dog, Chesley.
It's pretty unique. It has like a nice like steel plate as a curb base.
She's like, let's go for dinner, please.
She's like, I'll get the reservation if you
Yeah.
want. Just give me the credit card for a martini or two, and you can stay out here. And did you take a picture of it?
Well, no, I didn't. But I know where it is, so I can go back on the street.
Not sure if you actually take your measurements for it. That's really funny. No, it's true that's something kind of that I like learned from you guys, right? Is that engineering is not just what you do on the day to day or in the office, but if you do pay attention kind of to the outside world and you make it part of like your life, there's all these other lessons that you can learn as well, right? Like if it's something you're like, oh, you turn your mind off, at the end of the day, like that's something for you, Chelsey, you'd be like, oh, like that's just another curve, right? Like you wouldn't even notice that, right? But I think paying attention to that and being detail oriented is something I got from you guys. Is be aware and like look around, because there's something that you can take from other things, and then you might not even be able to know that you can incorporate in your everyday life, sort of thing.
I'm not sure if he taught me this, but when I get stuck in design, like if I just can't solve a retaining wall, like where does it start, where does it end? Just like walk down St. Clair or walk down any street that has retaining walls everywhere, and then go back to your design, and you'll be able to solve it.
That's still a trick I even, when I'm explaining kind of to some EITs in the office, I'll be like, I'll literally pull my chair to the window, and I'll say, just look at that. It's beside your old building, actually.
Yeah, right. No.
I'll say, just look down that street. You can see it goes from 15 centimeter curve.
Yeah.
One side gets higher, one side gets lower.
Let's
That's what we're
stop
looking
somewhere.
at right now. Right.
Oh yeah.
So, now after all these memories that we've talked about, I'd like to ask you guys each, what was your welcome to consulting moment? What was the one moment in your career? It could be younger, it could be older, it could be in the middle of it, where you're like, wow, now I'm like, not that I've arrived or I've made it, but now I'm being, I don't like to say taken seriously, but now this is, my input is being valued, and now it's like, wow, okay, I'm here. I'm with the players now.
Well, I can tell you mine. I know you guys probably were in the office too. I don't know if you noticed anything, but mine was I was working. My manager at the time was on vacation, of course, when all the good things happen, right?
That's how it goes.
So it was our Southlands project in BC, which is one of the largest projects that I've worked on, and it was in construction, and there was the contractor just poured like a good 200-meter section of curb, and the elevations were completely off. So I was a bit, obviously, they were coming back to Aplin as a claim against us, because this looked like it was a design issue. So I went through the hoops of figuring out, whose fault it was, if we got to go through insurance, everything.
Yeah. which is always fun when you get those calls that aren't particularly enjoyable.
Yeah.
with work.
And at the time, being the responsible engineer on the project, since my manager was out of the country, all that kind of came down to me to figure out. So I mean, in the end, it was a very valuable lesson. We did the design based on our best knowledge, based on the information we had. However, everything was based off of LiDAR survey, which was good for the bulk of the site, but not accurate enough for laying a curb next to an existing road edge. So ultimately, I guess those are things that I look out for. Obviously, every time we are using a survey too, to make sure that the data is accurate enough for our use. Even though it might be the responsibility of the surveyor also to make sure that their methods are adequate too.
Yeah, it's just something always to keep in mind. It's something that you look. I even remember one of my first projects I worked with you guys. It was the benchmark wasn't referenced correctly, and then when we ended up converting everything, one was not that it was just in feet. So converting that was the easy part.
Still didn't match.
It didn't match because it was referenced to like a random point, and then when we compared it to the as-built, we're like, why is 150 centimeters exactly different than all the rest of them, right? So it's definitely something where it gives you that little, makes your heart tick a little bit faster for a little bit, and like, okay, let's breathe for a second and let's figure it out.
I remember that. I think the first few surveys we got I was used to, like, for the majority out west, we have Aplin Martin surveying. So you almost don't think about it. It comes in and everything's good.
It's an amazing survey.
And we came in and, all these surveys by some of the local surveyors out here were just referenced to nothing, a local benchmark.
Literally a bench probably on the side.
That they set at an elevation of 0 or 100.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So having that.
Now it's always the first thing I check every
Always.
single time.
No. I do remember that you were a little bit stressed that week. Just a little bit. Usually you're cool. That week, I do remember that one. I guess my turn.
Yeah.
Okay, mine's not really a project. I guess at the last firm I was with, we saw, the whole world saw that COVID-19 has introduced like next day delivery. Amazon loves that. Would you like something? Here it is.
Here's your at your doorstep.
So the senior management team of this firm, they saw a huge opportunity in the industrial market and large-scale logistics facilities, like 500,000 square feet and up. And they wanted to take as much work as possible in that market because it's shown to be a good market to focus in right now. So I like to think I'm good at design. A lot of people tell me that.
I think you are.
I learned design from Chesley and others, and I'm just as good as the people I've worked under. So the senior management team, they saw this in me, and they saw my business aspects and my outlook on things, and they asked me to lead the industrial team for the firm. It was not a real position. It was just please facilitate meetings, get to site, take on the big work.
Get this done.
Just shoot out.
Job description.
And just share information and try to bring everyone together to focus in and ultimately be the best civil consultant firm for these logistics facilities. And I took it on my shoulders pretty hard. I thought that day that someone, is looking at me in that light, and it's really nice. The vice president introduced me to every single office as the industrial guy.
Yeah.
And it was like week 2 as the industrial guy, so I don't know what they meant. I don't know what the people on the other camera were thinking by this. But it was really cool. I used that as something to continue my path here, and I'm thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah, you almost get, like you said, getting that recognition from kind of all of those years that you've worked under Chesley and other managers as well, right? Culminating to, you're like, wow, okay, now I can kind of see where all of those overtime hours, daily hours kind of come into fruition, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I guess I do know grading. Okay.
Because at some point, sometimes when you're working, you're just doing it, right?
Yeah, you
But
just gotta
then
get
when
it
you're
done.
when your feedback and what you're saying is valued by other people,
Yeah.
that's the point when you can be like, okay, now I have my own sense of responsibility, kind of not just for me, but for everything else around
Exactly.
me. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess a little bit less serious now. What would you say between the both of you has been the most memorable moment that you guys either have shared in the while part of the Toronto office or apart from the Toronto office? What is something that you guys will take with you kind of from the past 7 years, transitioning from where we were from our first office to now this newer one as well?
I'll take it outside of work.
Sure.
My Sunday golf, which has, like, I hope forever we have the time and the ability to make time for our Sunday golf.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen too often, but that's something I want to take away as we move to Oakville, is to still find them on the golf course every 2 weeks, maybe next year. So.
And it's good that it's not just a work relationship, right?
No.
So it's a friendship too that comes out from work that kind of came naturally, and you're able to just keep that going as you, even though, like you said, you moved away and came back, right? But even when you moved away, you guys are still in contact, and we're still good friends throughout that all, right? So it's something that came from work, the actual workplace, and you're able to actually grow it kind of to where it is today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with the social aspect for sure. I learned this from Derek way back in the day, but we always used to go out to a pub, lay down some pieces of paper, drink beer, do work, and I think we've done that plenty here too.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit too much.
Shh, don't say that.
Preliminary design work. Just high level stuff.
Background research.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good way to get out outside the office and get to know your coworkers in a different setting, and I think everybody's a little bit more comfortable or at least comfortable to speak their minds and have open ideas and stuff.
Yeah, because I think exactly it's a less formal setting, so you're able to actually see kind of what is a part of somebody's personality and what makes them tick and what they're comfortable with and what you're comfortable with sharing, and then actually, not that you do it intentionally, but then bringing that back into the office and saying, okay, well, now I saw that portion of their life, so I know that there is something there that I can use kind of to make not only the firm work better, but work better with them as well. If someone's more shy, if someone's more extrovert, right? There's all these different qualities that you can almost tap into when you're working with somebody that you may not have known if you didn't have that outside of the office as well.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for your younger self or somebody else that's starting or thinking about starting either a startup or thinking of starting to move to a smaller firm? What would you tell a younger version of yourself? What advice would you give?
Well, yeah, I can start. So for me, I think it's more kind of knowing a little bit more of the industry now and how things operate. I think, especially as a startup or a younger person, just expanding your network outside the offices with other consultants, developers, clients. So as much as you can do that, getting out to events, talking with other people, gaining those relationships, the earlier you start, the better, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. And it's something, because I remember when you're in university and there's these networking events or ththese social events, you're like, I don't want to go to that, it's not cool. But then as you get older and you realize, you're like, wow, these are things that you're going to be able to, you never know, it's as many firms as there are and as many projects there are, it's a pretty small industry, right, so to speak, right? So there's always kind of the same faces and the same names. Obviously, there's new people that come into it and retire and leave it. But the main focus kind of always stays the same, right? So you never know when that could come back to help you, right? So you always want to constantly be building that and working on your relationships.
Always.
Especially at the beginning, though, right? You're focused on a lot of technical aspects of the work.
Yeah.
So it's easy to, forget about the other part as well, building those relationships.
Yeah, you don't want to be too hyper-focused on just that portion.
Yeah, it's good. I think if I could give my younger self some advice, it'd probably be to slow down and enjoy the process a little bit more. That was a little bit of a bag of stress some days as a EIT, and I look back at it now, and I don't know why I would have been so nervous about any of it.
Natural.
Like now, as the stamping engineer on my work, I get to bear the stress, and I can tell the team to don't worry about it. So I wish I just reminded myself a little bit back then and realize that this is a process. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but just enjoy it and learn from it. Don't go home with any angers or stress. Don't take stuff personally. We're all just working for a business, working for the community. So
and working on yourself and working to improve yourself.
Exactly.
As well, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that it's one of the things that I learned as well, growing from at the start to where I am now, is that it's never, don't be too hard on yourself, so to speak. You are going to make mistakes. You can still make mistakes. Today there are things that, you miss, whether it's in a proposal or you misspoke or there's something, right? But there's always going to be times where you can fix that and work on that, right? Like it's not the be all end all, right? Again, at the end of the day, you're just human. I know some people are like, you're the professional, it's going to be 100%, like 100% of the time. No, it's not, right? Like there are things that come up, and being able to realize that and work on that, I think is super important as well.
Agreed.
So now, obviously, Chesley, you've been at Aplin a long time. I've been at Aplin as well a long time, and Andrew has been
in the middle.
In the middle, there and back. What makes you want to continue to be part of Aplin, this team, this growth, this organization?
I mean, I think it is the growth here. So obviously, we're here. We've seen the growth in Ontario already, and it's just from when I started to now, the company has grown from like 50 to 350. So it's just, there's so much potential here. We still got a lot more growth to do over the coming years, and it's kind of like an endless career opportunities that you have here.
I guess like two parts. One part, Chelsey Blahut. I want to work under him, with him, alongside on our projects. I think his leadership, his guidance is very helpful for those stressful days. You talk to him for 10 minutes, everything changes.
Why don't you just do this? Look at this.
Right? You just, it's just it's a magical thing getting some of the advice some days. And then the growth. I love that Aplin does master plans. I love that we take large pieces of land out west and we solve the solution so the landowners and the employment lines can come to life. And I think there's lots of opportunity in Ontario to do that type of service. And I'm hoping we can do it as a team here.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as well, right? And you're not only just working on one certain type of project or one certain aspect of a project, right? Like you guys doing this is a part of the business that you probably didn't think you'd be doing even like 6 months ago, right? Yeah. So there's different and unique things that they're pushing and that you want to be a part of, not only to build the company, but then work on yourself and work on different aspects of your own career, right? Like this helps something you might have not even thought about, at least for me, for myself as well, right? So I would say definitely just the opportunities to help to continue to make yourself grow career-wise, but also personal-wise as well.
Sure. Yeah. And all the great people out west.
Yeah, not just us three in this room and the people out there, but there's
a lot
of to tap into across, literally across the country. So
experts everywhere. It's great, and it rains different here versus BC, so everyone has different design solutions across Canada.
Yeah,
it's really nice to pull on each other.
Use your network.
Yeah, there it is. Huh?
That's awesome, guys. Well, that's all we got for today. I'd like to thank Andrew and Chesley again for joining us on today's episode and sharing your knowledge and everything else that we've spoken about today. And thank you to our listeners as well. Stay tuned for the episode and have a great day.